In this video, I will go over the story of the AMG Hammer. These cars have been on fire in the collector market and selling for more than $700,000. So what exactly is a Hammer, and why is it so iconic? To discuss the Hammer, we have to look back at the founders of AMG, Hans-Werner Aufrecht and Ernhard Melcher. These two former Mercedes-Benz engineers founded their company in 1967 in Grossasbach, Germany, with the goal of custom tailoring Mercedes cars to their customers' desires. By the 1980s, AMGs were built in multiple locations, whether at its new home in Affalterbach, Germany, or through its authorized agents such as AMG North America, Stratton in the UK, and AMG Japan. At the time, the M117 V8 was the most powerful Mercedes engine, with the largest offering being the 5-liter single overhead cam in the early 80s. AMG toyed around with this engine by porting the heads and adding better camshafts, among other minor changes. In late 1984, the all-new W124 was first being delivered to customers. It was another leap forward in automotive design and quality. At the time, it was one of the most aerodynamic designs on the road and benefited from state-of-the-art multi-link rear suspension. Given the advanced new platform, AMG almost immediately began working on a V8 conversion for the 124. Aufrecht had the dream of building a sedan that could do 300 kilometers an hour, and the 124 was the perfect platform. A great deal more work was needed to fit a V8 engine because the 124 series had never been designed for an engine this large. To increase the power of Mercedes V8, AMG was working away at adding their own 4-valve cylinder heads to the 5-liter M117. Over 335 horsepower was the result, but very few 5-liter 4-valve engines were completed, and even less were jammed into 124s. AMG then bored out their engine to 5.4 liters, which became available around late 1985, but again, very few were completed. That same year, Mercedes unveiled their flagship 5.6-liter M117 with 295 horsepower in the best ECE version of the 126 series. This was the perfect opportunity for AMG. They transformed the new 5.6 M117 with their 4-valve cylinder head design, and their creation was ready in the 124 by the end of 1986. The 300E 5.6 AMG and its powerful V8 engine with 355 horsepower and aerodynamic fine-tuning topped out at around 180 miles an hour. American magazines named it the Hammer. It's fitting that the word was the same in both English and German. AMG embraced this name and added it to their marketing. In the December 1986 issue of Car and Driver, the Hammer was praised as the most exciting sedan that they've ever tested. The car leaped from 0 to 60 miles an hour in just over 5 seconds. It ran through the quarter mile in 13.5 seconds at 107 miles an hour. It ran 60 to 120 miles an hour faster than the Lamborghini Countach. Lots of work was done to this car beyond the engine, as AMG modified the valve body of the 4-speed transmission, added W126 driveline parts, and a limited slip differential. They lowered the car with stiffer springs and Bilstein dampers. AMG beefed up the rear subframe of the car and widened the inner fender wells for the bigger wheels and tires. And of course, the distinctive exterior styling was added, which included the iconic wheels. Inside, Recaro seats were available, among other AMG treatment. The car didn't come cheap, at $160,000 in 1986. Inevitably, the next move for AMG was to bore out the engine, and the 6-liter Hammer was ready for the summer of 1987. The further increase in displacement, coupled with the 4-valve technology, increased output to 380 horsepower and 417 pound-feet of torque. the car was able to cross the coveted 300 km/h or 186 mph barrier, the original goal of this passion project. And to some, the most impressive of all is the wide-body 300 CE paired with the 6-liter engine. Also demonstrating the customer-oriented attitude of AMG from this time was the fact that a manual transmission version was completed on a Hammer sedan. These cars were produced in extremely low numbers to close out the 1980s. The base cars were usually 300Es, but sometimes even 230s were used. Just 13 were built by AMG of North America. The total number of Hammers produced, including sedans, coupes, and a single TE wagon, is as low as 30 to 35 cars based on current knowledge. However, in an AMG magazine from 2010, the total number of Hammers was quoted as 54. So there's always an air of mystery about these cars, that more are out there. After the M117-powered Hammers, AMG continued to modify 124 300Es in the early 1990s with Mercedes' new M119 engine. As it was already a 4-valve engine, AMG only had to fine-tune the Mercedes heads rather than add their own, so building the engines became a lot less time-consuming, and they were also bored out to 6 liters just as before. The earliest 6-liter M119s were actually called M117-9-60. Most believe that these are actually M119s with M117 parts added. The front timing cover of the M117 and early M119 960s are interchangeable, so that gives you the M117 distributor drive on the front of the engine, along with the accessories and the trademark M117 air cleaner. Although there's continued speculation as to exactly why this was done, most likely an easier transplant and wiring situation, and these were usually seen on AMG Japan cars. AMG soon got their hands on the 500E, which made things a lot easier, as the car was already designed for a V8 engine by Mercedes. AMG then worked together with the Mercedes for the E60 AMG of 1993 as a series production model, which was a lot more carefully engineered compared to the Hammers of the 80s. Around this time, AMG was slowly absorbed into Mercedes, and the rest is history. So the Hammer is a W124 with a dual overhead cam AMG M117, chiefly the 5.6 and the 6-liter. These cars may have been a bit rough around the edges, but putting genuine supercar performance into a sedan is something that the Hammer kicked off, and we've seen AMG at the front of this idea ever since. So it's no wonder that even Mercedes itself considers the AMG Hammer among its most important cars of all time. As mentioned before, AMGs were built to order in the 80s. Beyond these complete Hammers, they made more cost-effective 6-liter 2-valve M117s and plenty of 6-cylinder 124s. And of course, the most popular items were the visual upgrades without buying all the expensive performance mods. So what's it like owning a Hammer? Well, they require careful attention. Hammer expert Jonathan from Blue Ridge Mercedes explains the situation. The Melcher-designed 3-piece heads were cast from a porous alloy and are prone to leaks. Early 4-valve engines had smaller cam bearings that were prone to seizing. Later engines have bigger bearings that fix the problem. These engines have solid lifters with a shim over bucket design, which in turn takes a long time to complete a valve adjustment with special tools. Fixing these engines is expensive, but they run very well when they're set up right. There are a few expert places for these cars such as Rentec and Blue Ridge MB. Curated also gets a mention for their effort to preserve and document these cars. So what is the market like today for these cars? Well, crazy is one way to put it. These cars have gone from below the 6-figure mark 10 years ago to be on course to break the 7-figure mark. This late 2022 MB market auction of a 6-liter Hammer coupe sold for over $760,000. But this was a very well-preserved example with solid history behind it. Soon after, a private sale of a wide-body 6-liter coupe went for even more. The Hammer Club is very exclusive. Only a few dozen cars were produced, so documentation is everything. Engine stampings, paperwork, and ownership history are all super important. The true Hammers, the cars with the M117, are the most valuable from a historical perspective, as AMG spent ridiculous hours on each car. The later M119 powered 124s may look just as cool, but they don't have the same historical value, in my opinion at least. Is the price of these cars justified? Being that it's AMG's most important car, used even in today's marketing, it just might be. Nonetheless, this was a crazy time for AMG, with the 4-valve M117 going into a few different models, and the 124 Hammer was the crown jewel. That's it for this video. If you want to support the channel, take a look at my store, link is in the description. If you want to see more Mercedes and AMG content, subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.